Dustin and Reed. Give it up for them. How incredible was that? It's phenomenal to be here in Orlando. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. I almost pinched myself there for a second. I was like, we are in Orlando still, right? Okay, great. Because that's what it's like right now. Someone made a joke earlier backstage about they had Pete at an event, and they're like, we had unfettered access to him. It's like, what's that like? I miss him. If you see him, tell him I say hi. It is so good to be here with you this evening, because we are all here for one thing, and that is because we're ready to hope again. We are ready for a politics rooted in hope and community and belonging and acceptance. And that's what Pete for America is all about. For those of you who don't know why you're here, my name's Chasten. My husband is Pete. He's running for president of the United States. He's currently polling first in Iowa, and I'm a little proud. And it's great to be here this evening to tell you a little bit more about Pete for America. And I am joined by someone very special. Mandy came to one of our first events in LA. I believe Pete was still in the exploratory phase at that time. And she came up to me after the event and she said, I'm really sorry to bother you, but do you think I could get a photo with you? And I was like, yes, Mandy Moore, yes. Yes, you may. She has become a fast friend of our campaign, a staunch supporter because, like me and like you, she believes in this hopeful politics. She believes that politics can be more than just a show in Washington, that it can be about reaching out to other people and making sure that they feel like they fit, that they belong, that there is a story for all of us in this great American story. And it has been so touching to get to know Mandy. She's been such a friend and a confidant, someone who knows what it's like to be in the spotlight, knows what it's like to be under an immense amount of pressure. You probably know her from her hit show on ABC, This Is Us. Her film Midway is in theaters right now. And please, please, please welcome me with a big Pete for America welcome. Welcome to the stage, my friend Mandy Moore.
Walkout song. Chasten was texting me this morning. He's like, what do you want your walkout song to be? I was like, okay, wait. It took me like an hour to come up with some suggestions.
It's a good one. It was a good choice.
I mean, I feel like Tom Petty can be a little on the nose, but I'm fine with that. That's fine.
I'm for it.
It's nice to be home. It's been kind of a long time since I've been back, so thank you so much for coming out to support this weekend. I won't belabor the point. I'll just briefly give you some background as to why I am a Pete fan. Yeah, I'm a singer, songwriter, actor, producer, but tonight I am here strictly in the capacity as an enthusiastic Pete supporter. I heard about Pete back in 2017 when he was running for the DNC chair, and I got to know a little bit about him and how qualified he is as a candidate, and I was a little bummed out when he dropped out of the race, but then thrilled to hear that he had launched, as Chasten just mentioned, his exploratory committee for a potential presidential run. And I was invited by a friend of a friend to an event in LA, I'd say in March, and they knew that I'm into politics, this friend of mine, and she was like, so Pete Buttigieg is gonna be there. I'm like, I have to go. I never heard him speak, I'd never seen him in person before, and I assume this is something he does a million times a day. He walks into a room full of strangers and sort of takes photos and shakes hands and then sort of launches into his greatest hits, and the room was odd. And I was odd. I was like, this man's gonna be the president, and I want to campaign and do absolutely everything I can to help him. I was struck, and I'm sure everyone in this room can understand how articulate, how engaging he was, how intelligent he was, but also how human. Like, I felt the connection. I felt like he wasn't talking over me, he was talking to me, and his plans and his policies and everything that he was sort of regaling us with, I was like, none of that feels unattainable. Like, I'm on the team, let's do this, let's figure out how to do this. And I mean, I feel like my job kind of has introduced me to a lot of fantastic characters, but Hollywood couldn't even come up with a character like that, right? I mean, when you think about it, though, it's like, here's this man who is a Midwestern mayor, and took office at 29, helped turn around a city on the brink. He's a Navy veteran who saw firsthand the effects and the costly effects of war. He is a millennial, he's a Rhodes Scholar, he speaks half a dozen languages, he plays the piano. I'm intimidated. And yet, in his downtime, he wants to be home with his husband and your rescue pups. Like, he's so relatable. I mean, it's like you couldn't write it if you tried. He's just that original, and I feel like we're at a moment, right, where we can't have the same old ideas and the same old faces that we're used to sort of putting forth those ideas. We need someone different, right? We need a leader who can viscerally understand the struggles and the crisis that this country is in and the challenges that we're facing, and have the experience on the ground to face those challenges. And it's undeniable. It is Pete, you know, he brings so much to the table. I'm so thrilled to be here on behalf of the campaign and with Chasten to just shout it from the rooftops how undeniably qualified he is, and to galvanize the energy in a room like this and in rooms across the country to help make him the next president of the United States. Yeah. Being here, and thank you to Chasten.
Thank you.
And I think we're going to just sort of have a bit of a chat.
You have a
shall
fishbowl
we?
by your... All right.
Ooh. Do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Okay. All right. I think this is for me.
Is it? The wrong bowls. No? Oh yeah, we do have the wrong bowls.
Oh, okay.
I see a question that is very much for me.
It's like, Chasten, what's it like being on a hit television show? I was like, I don't think I was on CBS for like 2 minutes. Okay, Mandy, who is one of your role models?
Who is one of my role models? I think there are role models in our everyday life all around us, men and women alike. I mean, my friends, I specifically will single out a really new and dear friend of mine, Melissa, who is an alpinist and a guide. I don't know if you know this about me, but I've really gotten into hiking lately.
Yeah, I follow your Instagram stories.
Okay. So my friend has summited Everest 6 times. She is just the definition of badass. She's a wife and a mom and a champion of other women and female athletes, and I just love her. I learned so much about myself and about the world when I'm lucky enough to be in her company, and I'm about to go on another trip with her. She just, I have her on a pedestal, for sure. Yeah.
That's
what
awesome.
about you? Who are some of your role models? I know. It's a tough one to answer because I feel like it changes.
Yeah, you know, well, I never thought politics was going to be for me.
Surprise!
But I carry Michelle Obama's book around with me, and because sometimes when it gets hard, I'll just flip to a story that I've read of hers, and it's just a good reminder that someone has been in these shoes and knows what it's like to kind of watch your husband sort of get pulled away from you and go through things that you never thought you would experience. So I enjoy going back to her book. She's a phenomenal leader and woman, and so grateful for the service she gave to our country. And now it is scary and intimidating to be in a position I know that Michelle Obama was in 2007. So I will never measure myself to her, but her book is phenomenal and just a good resource right now.
Great answer.
Thank you.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Okay, I'm interested in this one.
Okay.
What do you wish people knew about Pete that only you see?
Oh. Yeah, it's like his lovingness. I feel like it's frustrating sometimes for me because Pete has to go on TV and on the debate stage and say like the same things over and over again, and his job is to say the same things over and over again in different ways. But he gets asked the same questions all the time, and when you are asked the same questions all the time, you rarely get to show more about yourself. And that's when like punditry comes in, right? And they start to analyze this person based on how they have answered the same question, and you don't get to see this extremely loving man who made me believe in love again because of how loving he is and how patient he was and kind he was. When I met Pete, I brought a lot of baggage to the relationship. I had been through really bad relationships, and I had been abused in other relationships, and was really nervous and scared about allowing myself to take that wall down again. And the way that Pete just made me believe in myself and believe in love and take a chance, and you know, he's the guy who buys me like cute little trinkets everywhere he goes, and he'll like leave surprises in my bag, and he'll like write me poems or letters and sneak them in places. Yeah, and, like I'll get home from the trail, and sometimes we're in passing, so we're not at home at the same time, and he'll leave like a note under the pillow for me, and you don't get to see that. You don't get to see that really loving, creative person all the time. So I wish, and that's why I'm out here actually, because I want people to really get to know that side of him too. I wish you could see it though more for yourself.
That's a great answer. Yeah, we do see it, right? It's apparent. It comes across.
Good. Okay. And by the way, your Instagram stories when you were doing the hike to base camp,
So awesome.
it's like
So awesome.
I'm like at home eating Ben and Jerry's. And I'm like, oh, good for Mandy. That looks hard. Okay. All right. I almost unfollowed Tom Daly this morning. I was like, I can't do this in my life. You know, I don't need that many. All right. What influenced you to be politically active?
I don't feel like any of us have a choice at this point. I mean, I feel like as individuals, it is our responsibility to educate ourselves, to arm us with the facts, and there's no way to not be politically active. Decisions that are being made at the highest levels of government affect our lives fundamentally, all of us in this room, each and every day, no matter what our circumstances are. So it feels, again, undeniable to me. I remember kind of, I guess, like the switch flipping on for me when I was 18 and I was able to vote for the very first time. It was such an honor. I was so thrilled, I was so excited, and that was what I guess shifted my brain to start thinking about politics in a way of not just necessarily owning how I grew up or what my parents thought or how they voted. It was like trying to determine who I was and my lens on the world, and you know, I guess voting accordingly. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, we're grateful.
Thank you.
I think I get asked a lot about students, like how are we going to encourage students to turn out to vote, and when I talk to a lot of students, they're so disheartened, like they tuned it out, right? And because like look what we've done, right? Like the climate's falling apart, and like when you want kids to go to school, and they're like, am I going to get murdered today at school? Is the climate even going to be here for me in 20 years? Like you do not get the obligation of sitting this out anymore, none of us, because even if you feel like it doesn't touch you, there's millions of people depending on you, right? Folks who are incarcerated, children who can't speak up for themselves, right? People whose marriages are depending upon you turning out to vote the right way. So it's just such a position of privilege to say, I'm not really interested, I don't really want to vote, when hundreds of millions of people and their lives are depending on us to turn out.
Yeah, I agree. in this room understands that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You're all
And everyone who's
fascinated.
registered?
Good question. What advice do you have for students who want to make a social justice impact but don't know where to start?
Don't wait. Don't wait for someone to say it's your turn or your march or your sit-in or whatever is convenient, because that's the whole point, right? Which is why I'm so heartened by the activism coming out of the students from Parkland and March for Our Lives, because they didn't wait. They didn't wait for someone to say, hey, young people, would you be comfortable speaking about gun violence now, right? And that it's so important that educators and adults encourage and empower young people too. When I was teaching last year and the students wanted to go to the March for Our Lives, they came to me and I found a way for it to work with the administration. It was like, the kids are going, so it's not, are they allowed to go? I'm telling them they're allowed to go, so let's figure out how we're gonna make this work so it doesn't come down on their shoulders, and you have to make it work for them. You have to listen to them, because when a 13-year-old is coming up to you and saying, I'm tired of this, I'm tired of living in fear, and you need to do something about it, and part of you doing something about it is allowing me to go to this march, then you do what I did. You say, all right, I'll go to the march with you, and we have to listen to young people. We have to empower them to speak up. And I know it can be really overwhelming, all of the things that are on our shoulders, but pick one thing, pick one heavy thing that you care passionately about, and don't ask for permission. Just find a group of people to surround yourself with who are gonna lift you up and empower you to do it.
I like that. Don't ask for permission.
All right. How did you and Chasten meet?
Well, you did speak about that. I did come up like a nerd and ask for a photo.
It was the most flattering thing someone's ever said to me.
You were standing by yourself at this event, and I was like, oh my God, he's not being mobbed by people, he's not being surrounded by people. So I had to, I saw my opening, I couldn't not ask for a photo. And then we sort of became Instagram friends, and then, you take your relationship offline into text land, which is really exciting. But you're so busy, I'm just like, I'm always thrilled to just hear from you, even if it's a random like, hey, how are you doing? Because your life has changed exponentially even since I met you earlier this year.
That's ridiculous.
I don't know how you do it, and so every now, I never want to bother you, but I'm always like, I wonder what Chasten's doing. I hope Chasten's okay. I hope Chasten's getting sleep. Is he taking his vitamin C? I almost want to follow you around. I'm sure you have plenty of people to do that, but I just want to make sure you're getting something nutritious to eat.
Thank you.
And, staying active and taking time for yourself. I do tell you that a lot.
Yeah.
And make sure you're at least finding time to digest everything that's going on and I don't know, meditate, do something.
Yeah, well, that's what makes you a really good friend.
Oh,
when we kicked this campaign off, we had, right? When we met in March, I think this campaign had 4 people on it. Or, the campaign grew, it's grown so fast. And at that point, we didn't have a surrogates director. And they were just having me manage some of the relationships that we had made in Hollywood, and hoping that some folks would eventually come out on the trail and be surrogates. And so I'm gonna tell a story. I was overjoyed that Mandy was interested in the campaign and asked her to meet me for coffee in LA. And she agreed, and then at the end of the coffee, she was like, well, where are you going now? And I was like, oh, it was the day Pete was gonna be on Ellen DeGeneres. And I was like, well, I just have to be to Warner Brothers by whatever time it was.
And he was like, I'm just gonna walk there. I'm like, oh, you don't live in LA, nobody walks here. You're not walking to the Warner Brothers lot. It wasn't that far, but I was like, I have nothing to do, I just met you for coffee, I'm driving you to Ellen.
Yes. So Mandy is like, you don't need an Uber, you don't need to walk. I'm gonna drive you. So she drives me to the Warner Brothers lot, and
the guard
was not having it. He's like, I'm sorry, and you are? I was like, oh no, I'm just like, can I just drive, his name was on the list. I'm like, can I just drive him on and drop him off like near the stage door?
And he's like, no. It's like, it's Mandy Moore! It's Mandy Moore! She's dropping me off at Ellen!
He's like, you can drop him off here and do a U-turn and get out of here. I was like, okay, I guess.
So he let her drive into the lot and
To drop
like,
you off.
not 10 feet past the
Yeah.
like stanchion, and then he was like, you need to go! You need to go! And, like, he's like awkwardly like car hugging me,
Yeah,
and
like,
thank
trying
you
to
so
hug
much. He's like, ma'am, you need to get off the lot. It's like, it's Mandy Moore! So then I met Ellen for the first time backstage, and the first thing I said was, you know, the guard wouldn't let Mandy Moore in today. I was like, I don't know if you have anything to do with that. If you could maybe let them know that if ever Mandy comes to the gate.
I just wanted to get you where, because you were like, well, where do I go? I was like, it's that soundstage. It's like 3 down, and
Yeah, no.
I thought that I want to get you to
No,
your
ma'am.
location as a driver would. It was my job.
It was so awkward.
It was funny though.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
sorry. I digress.
All right. Okay. What impact did arts education have on you, and why is it important?
Everything. I look backstage at my friend Mr. Jeff Revels, who's back there, who was an enormous part of my young theater life. I mean, you can speak to this as well, and I'm sure many folks out there. For me, it's like arts education was not only a community, it was a connection to who I was. It made me a more empathetic person, it made me a good listener, it made me a better friend and daughter, and it gave me confidence. It also instilled the idea, I mean, I think to be a performer and to you know, I guess be somewhat okay at it, it really requires presence, like being present. And that's such a difficult part of the human condition, but like starting that training with that community at such a young age, I mean, it was everything. I never had a plan B. I was always like, this is who I am, this is what I'm gonna do, and I really didn't like think outside of that scope because I was lucky to have found a like-minded group of people who embraced me, who encouraged me, who supported me. Not only educators and teachers like Jeff, but my parents. I mean, parents sacrifice so much, you know, to watch your kids do whatever it is they love to do, and my parents were no exception in that regard. But it's everything, and I'm so grateful that the school I went to, shout out Park Maitland, had an emphasis on drama and music. There's no way I ever would have been introduced to it whatsoever. No one in my family is artistically inclined. I'm sort of the weird black sheep in that regard, and I wouldn't have had any idea that was something I loved and was passionate about had I not been introduced to it at school. So, yeah, a huge impact. What about you?
That is the same. Yeah, I felt like such an outsider as a kid, and just felt like I didn't fit in, I didn't belong, I was weird, I was goofy, and got bullied a lot at school, and then I could go into the theater space and everyone loved you because you're goofy and different. And it saved me as a kid. My high school theater teacher made such a great space for me in the theater, and then you know, going to college and being surrounded by people who were also goofy and different, right? And then working alongside Jennifer at First Stage, people who really pushed me to be a better educator and a better artist, and who empowered me to shape lives through theater as well. But it was just finding your tribe, right? Finding people who believe in you and tell you it's okay to be yourself. But it definitely saved me. I don't know where I'd be without it.
Same. Some of these same questions are in there, already answered. In a time period when so many are struggling, what suggestions do you have for remaining hopeful?
Well, find your tribe. So,
Yeah.
here's your tribe.
Yes. I feel that.
Oh, do you know each other?
No.
Oh, I love that. Oh, they just met, they hugged. This is your tribe. These are your people. And you have the rules of the road shirt on, which is incredible. Thank you. You know, I'm in the early states a lot with our organizers at our field offices, and when they're doing Canvas kickoffs and they're getting ready to go out there and knock on doors, I always tell them, you know, I'm only here for 30 minutes or an hour, but these are the people who are here in your community with you all the time. And some of these people they've never met before, they're neighbors and they've never talked to one another, they've never met. And when I'm out on the trail, I talk a lot about our heavy things. So it's those things you carry around that you're worried about every day. And I think what it's going to take for us to win in 2020 is all of us getting really comfortable being uncomfortable. And doing that is talking about our heavy things. Things we're really worried about, things that are on the line in 2020. And you know, that community, those are the people who are there to help you carry your heavy things. I'm worried about mom and her cancer, and I'm worried about my marriage, and I'm worried about my students, and you know, I'm just worried about all these things, all these heavy things, but now I'm surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people who believe in this message too, right? And the best thing is, if you look around this room, all of these people are here because they want to help you carry your heavy things too. So make sure you make a friend tonight and say hello, because they're here for you as well. Don't give up, folks. We're all here for each other. All right. Is everyone hugging each other now? Fist bumping, all right. Oh, you already answered that one.
We have a lot of repeat questions.
Yeah, that's okay.
Which is good, though.
That's all right. Oh, what's your favorite memory of Orlando?
Oh, goodness. That's hard to say. You know, as we were driving downtown, I got a peek at is it still called the Bob car? Yes. Okay. They're gonna knock it down? Oh, I was like, what? So I passed I was passing it and I saw the stage door outside, and it just reminded me of harkening back to my school days of our 6th grade production of Guys and Dolls. It was the highlight of my life. I was like, I peaked at 12. It's not gonna get too better than this. It was the most exciting thing, but it was also the moment that really solidified. I was like, I can do this, I wanna do this. But Orlando has so many good memories. It's why I am who I am, and it's so strange to be back. I mean, I haven't lived here in 20 years. It's strange to be back and so much has changed, but you still land at the airport and I'm like, I know this feeling. There's no real humidity right now, but I know I can feel the air. I know I'm home. Yeah, so many incredible memories, and oh yeah, it's just nice to be back. So thanks for having me, guys. To make a hard one. As a first gentleman, what's the main initiative you want to focus on? Much like you were mentioning Michelle Obama and her book and her initiative as First Lady, what are your intentions? We're not going to hold you to anything, obviously. It's early days. But like, what are some ideas floating around?
Yeah, so it's arts education. So we talked a lot about this evening and why it's so important, how it can be so impactful for young people to have access to arts education. Some of the best work I did that Jennifer told you about earlier was a program called Next Steps, which students with autism could come into First Stage and experience a theater class and be in a creative, fun space. And I want to make sure that every kid in America has access to equitable arts education, that every kid in this country has some sort of programming that is empowering them to be their true selves. And I see that in theater and in the arts. I actually spent some time at the Orlando Rep earlier today, meeting with students. It was awesome. They're rehearsing for a production of The Lion King Jr.
Aww.
And they performed Circle of Life for me, and it was incredible. But we had a nice Q&A session, and kids asked the best questions. And one kid asked the same question, what are you going to do as first gentleman? And then another kid asked, what are you going to do if people hate that idea. Like, how are you? But she really meant it from a real place. So I talked about like why I love theater and why I think every kid deserves access to theater, how it shaped my life and how it changed my life, and I'm gonna use the power of the White House and the East Wing and do my best to work with every other part of the administration to make sure that we're pushing arts education. And then she asked the question, are you prepared for the idea that like some people might hate your idea? Which I thought was so powerful. So we got to talk about hate and negativity a little bit. And then another kid asked, and these are like young kids, these are like 10, 12-year-old kids, and a wide range, and a kid asked, how are you going to convince people to like theater? And I asked them, how many of you know who Michelle Obama is? And they did. So what was Michelle Obama's initiative? And they all knew what her initiative was, and that's the power that the office holds, right? That even young people learn the importance of what you're talking about, what you're advocating for from that office. I also think another really important thing that the East Wing can do is simply show up for people. Just simply go out there and make people feel like they belong and they fit. And not just like the 50% of the country that voted for you, but all Americans. To make sure that all Americans feel like they fit. And use the power of that office to just spread the message of love and inclusivity and acceptance. And I'm really excited for that, because I think, you know, out of the litany of egregious things that have come from this administration, it's a simple fact that they hate most of us. And they don't show up for us. And, you know, as an educator, I'm thinking every day about what messages are young people getting from this administration. And it hurts. It hurts as an adult to watch young people living in this country where the President of the United States is trying to make it harder for transgender students to exist in school. And they're telling basically any kid, if you're not white or straight, that you don't fit. That you don't fit in the American story, which is not true. And I think it's time that a White House sticks up for every American, and you see a president and a first gentleman going out there every day, making sure that everyone knows that they fit. All right. I think you've answered this one, but what about Pete's candidacy connected with you?
I think something that you just mentioned. There's something uniquely unifying about Pete and his message that resonated with me deeply, especially the first time I heard him speak. His message is inclusive. It's about bringing everybody to the table and not turning our backs on people who perhaps voted on the other, our friends on the other side of the aisle that maybe voted differently last go round. We need everybody to realize that there is more that connects us and unites us than separates us. And we have these shared values. And that's what I love so much about how Pete speaks. It's not disregarding anybody. Yeah.
I was opening up an office in Derry, New Hampshire, and Derry's in the house. And was giving this talk about the importance of inclusion in this campaign. And like what you just said, that we are not going to turn our backs on anyone, and we are not going to make people feel like they're complicit in some crime for how they voted. No matter how we feel about this president and what happened in 2016, we're moving forward. It's time for change and we're moving forward. And if we're going to move forward and save this country, then it's going to take everyone. And I'm giving this message about inclusion and reaching out to other people. And this woman raised her hand and said, well, I voted for Trump. And she said it in such a way that I felt like she was expecting all of us to boo her out of that room. And the thing I love about this campaign is that everybody clapped for her. They just clapped that she was in the space, that she showed up. She showed up to come knock doors for Pete, and they shook her hand, and they welcomed her, and they made her feel like she had made a positive, healthy choice to come over and help out Pete. And I have met so many people on the trail who have, secretly whispered or confided to me that they may have voted for this president, or they've always been a Republican, but now they're going to vote for Pete, because you can tell people they don't want to feel like we're pushing them off a cliff. They don't want to feel like we're pushing them further away. And that's not what this campaign does. This campaign opens its arms and welcomes people in, because that's how we win. That's how we win, and that's how we make this country a better place, when we invite people to make change, and we invite people onto the right side of history, not push them further away.
Why did you go into teaching, and have any teachers in particular had an impact on your life?
So I had some really bad teachers, and some really great teachers. And after I left undergrad and started working at First Stage, doing theater outreach programs out in Milwaukee Public Schools and then teaching theater classes at First Stage, I sort of discovered that maybe I want to become like a full-time classroom teacher. I moved to Chicago, worked in Chicago Public Schools for 2 years as a substitute teacher, just like ping-ponging around the city and just like getting as much experience on the ground as I could. And I decided, yeah, this is what I want to do, because I never wanted kids to feel the way I felt in those classrooms with really bad teachers. When you just feel like that teacher doesn't care about you. They don't care about the work, they don't care about you. I remember vividly a math teacher I had in high school that would be like, you got it, Glesman. Like, I literally don't. I need your help. He's like, oh, you're good, you got it. Talk to your table mates. Which is different than ask three before me if you're a teacher and you know that rule. Just, have other people do my job for me. And I failed miserably at math. And when I went to college, I had to do remedial math for 2 years because my high school teacher completely failed me. And when I was working with students in the schools, when I could just getting to know other teachers and see them coming from their classes when they came to mine, not to like toot my own horn, but like, I think I'm a fun teacher. And they thrived in that environment because I did my best to create a really inclusive, upbeat, welcoming environment where we accepted our differences and we acknowledged what our struggles were, we helped one another, and I just felt really good doing that work, and I wanted every kid to leave school feeling that way, and just kind of felt like it was really valuable work. I knew what I was up against. I will be paying these student loans off for forever. But it's such valuable work. And now the thing I hear from kids, our students on the trail, is now people are telling them not to become teachers because the pay is terrible, the working conditions are terrible, and I'm gonna make sure that I do whatever I can in the White House to advocate for strong public education. The Department of Education believes in public education, empowers our teachers, encourages students to become teachers. It's the best way. Spending your day helping young people believe in themselves.
Well, thank you for your work and the impact you've had on so many. And again, thank you to all the teachers out there.
Yes, teachers. Please buy them a drink. Is it my turn?
I think you only have one question left, so maybe...
You can see it too, you've been preparing this whole time.
And I feel like we haven't touched on that.
Oh, okay. Do you have one up your sleeve?
I feel like people are here for you. They want, I'm interested in this one.
No, that's not true. I met some people. And they were like, you're fine.
What has prepared you for standing with Pete in this campaign?
A theater degree! Oh, very early on in the campaign, a reporter asked me that question, and I said that, and she laughed at me. And I was like, I'm not joking. That's my job now, right? To continuously tell people how important the arts are. Truthfully, a theater education, my entire life, right? I was on the stage, I learned about myself, I learned how to trust myself on a stage, I was trusting my abilities to talk in front of large groups of people. But then I taught middle school, and boy, if you can survive teaching middle school, I think you can survive anything, because I worked with frustrating human beings. Right? I'll come off that soapbox. There's nothing that can prepare you for this moment, though. So while I feel like theater helped me be confident talking to people, and my experience in the classroom helped me sort of shape my worldview and why I care so passionately about children in the future, nothing can prepare you for running for president. And I think something that's connecting so well with people is Pete's just Pete, and I'm just gonna be me. And we're never gonna pretend to be somebody else so that it can be palatable for, other people. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I get that feedback, but I think it's just time for someone to be in the White House who gets it, and understands what it's like. And so I don't always know how to do this. Sometimes I just don't know.
But how could you?
Right.
How could anybody?
Yeah. So I'm just me, and when it gets hard, and I just talk about my lived experience, and I can't believe that somehow in the last 13 years I went from the kid who was sleeping in the backseat of his car in the back parking lot at the community college campus because I ran away from home because I was afraid everyone would hate me for being gay, to fighting my way through 5 years of undergrad with no one really helping me. First in my family to graduate from college, and figuring out that education was for me. And just when I felt like I was getting there, like I had found the profession and the thing I cared so passionately about, I met Pete. And I pinched myself a lot because all those lived experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, led me to here. And now I just get to travel the country every day and talk to people about hope and how I never gave up hope, and how I'm going to continuously do the work and show up for other people, because I spent my whole life waiting for politics to feel this way. When I was sleeping in the back seat and staring up at the stars, wondering why do people make it so hard? Why is it so hard to just simply exist in this country? And why don't people talk about me the way they talk about others? Why don't they make it easier? And spent the last 13 years wondering why, and somehow now I get to sit in front of you, and I get to be the person that I wish I would have had then. So it is such a blessing that we get to show up for you every day. And if you put Pete in the White House, I promise I'll continue showing up for you every day too.
But you are just as remarkable, Chasten. There is no greater representative for Pete and the work that he's doing and the work that you're doing. We're all honored to share this evening with you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I just got the sign that you get to ask one more question.
I get to ask one more, yes.
There's only one question left in the poll.
Oh.
Okay.
Besides watching This Is Us, what do you and Pete do to relax?
Nothing. What is relaxing?
I'm kidding.
I'm so glad you didn't bring This Is Us up all night.
It's okay.
So we don't watch This Is Us. I know. Wait for it.
It's fine.
Wait for it. So I confessed this to Mandy a long time ago.
Yeah.
On our first friend date.
Yeah.
We never get a night off. Like maybe once a month. And we
Who
start.
wants to cry on that
Yeah.
one night off?
So I have been wanting to watch This Is Us for a very long time. My mom, however, is obsessed. She was so mad she's not going to. So I was like, please, Pete, we just give it a chance. So we just never get to watch TV. And we watched the pilot, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this. Pete wept. And he was like, I'm sorry that I can't do this show. If we're gonna choose like one show to watch together, I cannot do this show. It's like, okay, I respect that.
I fully support that.
Yeah. But we support you in all of your endeavors. We're so proud of you.
What do you do to relax?
Okay.
One day a month.
So Pete and I are very different. So if we do get like a morning off, which is like 2 hours, Pete will like wake up early every morning, go for a run, read the newspaper. I will sleep in until the very last moment. I'd be like, you know the car's coming in 10 minutes, but I can put a suit on in 10 minutes. And if we have like a night off together, which is very rare, we try to get a nice dinner. Usually we're out on the road somewhere, so we'll pick like a really cool local restaurant with like a nice family story, so we get to know the community a little bit better. And if it's me at home alone with the dogs, it's like Chinese food, Netflix. I will like DoorDash the Dairy Queen or Cold Stone. Like it's like all junk food, pajamas, and Pete doesn't operate that way. So he'll go stir crazy. One time in the campaign we had like a day and a half off, and I thought he was gonna go insane. He was just like, we should be doing something. We had just bring it down, just a little bit. But you know, this is his passion. So like the work is a hobby too. So he loves reading and writing and working on the projects. And I love doing nothing.
I'm inviting myself over for a Netflix DoorDash.
Rose,
date with
face
the
mask.
pups.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So Orlando, thank you so much.